Well, I think the first thing I'm going to do is actually go and change my password on my email, because that was quite freaky. But thank you very much, Fritz, for the intro. I know you've actually competed in a lot of Ironman triathlons whilst working in the corporate world, so congratulations, that's tough. I think we all in our... thank you very much, my clicker. I think we all in our own way try and live a healthier life. And I think as business travelers, we're presented with a lot of hurdles. Endless buffets, client dinners in the evening, late arrivals, the 2 a.m. club sandwich. We've got no time to train. We don't have the facilities at a hotel. And really what I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes talking to you about is just how we solve those problems in Formula One. To give you a little bit of a background, I've worked in Formula One for 22 years. For the first 5 years, I was fitness trainer and physio for a guy called Räikkönen, and for the last 17 years, I've worked with Kimi Räikkönen as his fitness trainer and physio. For the 10 years at the beginning of my career, I was also the physio for David Coulthard. I've worked for McLaren, for Lotus, and I'm currently in my second stint with Ferrari. And between Mika and Kimi, they've won 3 world champions together. Like you, I'm also a business traveler, so I spend 220 to 250 days a year on the road. Last year I racked up 65 flights, so I know exactly what it's like to struggle with all of the different problems associated with jet lag, etc., etc. What I'd like to cover today is really just how we do things in Formula One. So we're going to look a little bit at the training side, we're going to look a little bit at the nutrition side, the therapy side, and then at the end we're just going to look at how we in Formula One arrive in the best shape possible. If you can get all of these things right, it really just leads to a stronger, healthier version of you. So, training in Formula One. What do we do? In Formula One, our kind of season is split into 3 phases. So, January, February is the time where we really make the gains. So, I will work with Kimi intensely, if you like, aiming for a specific goal. The goal this year over the winter was weight loss. Formula One engineers love the driver to be as light as possible because it allows them to then shift the weight of the car into different places. If a Formula One engineer wants the front of the car to turn better, they want to shift the weight to the front. If they want more traction on the rear tyres, they want to shift the weight to the rear. If the driver weighs too much, they can't shift that weight around. So the engineers always give me completely unrealistic targets of where they want the driver weight to be, and then I have to make some sort of compromise to make that happen. In terms of what we do, this winter I managed to drop 3.2 kilos off of Kimi, and the guy only weighed 70 kilos to start with. In Formula One, it's all about weight saving. So when I was at Ferrari the first time, they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars shaving not even a millimeter off of each gearbox part just to try and make the gearbox weigh less. So I think if I'd been really sensible, I would have actually done Ferrari a deal per kilo that I got off of Kimi. Our next phase is the season. So from March through until the end of November, we have 21 races, 11 of which are long-haul races. And there's no way when we're racing that much, when we're traveling that much, doing the promotions, doing the testing, that we can really train enough to make any real change in physical appearance. We can't really lose too much more weight. There just isn't enough time to recover. So our aim really during the season is just really to maintain the goals that we've managed to achieve in the first couple of months. If we then look at this from a business traveler point of view, how does this relate? I think a lot of people might be training at home. They might be training for increasing muscle mass, dropping a little bit of weight, maybe a combination of the two. I think the problem then comes when you go on a business trip. You might be going on a 4 or 5 day trip, and then all of a sudden everything goes out the window because, again, the misconceptions are you don't have enough time to train, you don't have the facilities to train in, you might find you're just too busy on the working side. For me, I've solved these problems really by training in the room. And I have several workouts that I will use when I'm traveling that revolve more around high-intensity interval training, core work. So if I'm going to travel to a race for 5 days, I know that Friday's my busiest day. We start super early, we're back super late, so I will give Friday, for me, as my day off. But for the other 4 days, I'll try and do 2 high-intensity interval training sessions, which for me last 15 to 20 minutes. Once I've finished that, I am completely toast. I cannot physically do any more. The other 2 sessions I do are just based around core work that I would normally do with Kimi. And for me, that would last 6 to 8 minutes. And that attacks the core from every direction. And again, after that, I'm done. So that's my 4 maintenance workouts while I'm traveling. And to just give you a little bit of an idea, some equipment. First of all, I'll show you a little bit of the in-room training that I would do. If David, we could play that video. Okay, the third move was practicing for the nightclub, but all I've really done here is taken 4 basic moves, and I work 30 seconds really hard, have a 30-second rest, go through those 4 moves, and just repeat them 3 or 4 times. That's 12 to 16 minutes as a workout, and that would be my workout. You do a quick warm-up at the beginning, quick cool-down at the end, but the idea is you can just do it in any hotel room using very little or no equipment. If we could, David, play the next one. So all I've really done here is use a little bit of equipment to provide resistance, which is this little band. Now, from a point of view of traveling, it actually fits really easily into any travel bag. It doesn't take up much space. And the other piece of equipment that wasn't really on the video is just a TRX. So it's a suspension training system that we can just hang on the back of a hotel door. Again, business travelers, we don't really want to be traveling with any more stuff than we have to. So the advantage of these sort of things is they really don't take up very much space, but they give you an option to add resistance into the training. But again, the whole point here is really just to show you don't need a gym. You don't really need any equipment. The first exercise was, or the first video was just me in a hotel room with nothing. Nutrition. What do we do with Formula One in nutrition? Nutrition can be a very complicated subject, but it can also be very simple, and people tend to overcomplicate it. In Formula One, we start with a very detailed blood and urine analysis for the driver. So I will get a 30-page report on absolutely everything in Kimi's body. So we look at all the different vitamin levels, mineral levels. We look at all sorts of different stress markers, hormones. We look at organs like the liver to see how they're working. And it's a little bit like the training. You need to really have a baseline of where you are to create a plan of where you want to go. So we take that report and we put together a nutritional plan based on that. If we see that anything's out of range, so like maybe omega-3s are way below where they need to be, omega-3s fight inflammation in their bodies, so they're quite important. We have 2 choices. Number 1, we address it with real food. Real food is always where we start because the body is much better at digesting and absorbing real food as opposed to something man-made. So that will be the first start. But if we want to attack it a little bit quicker, we can also use supplementations. I think for me, what's fascinating with this is when I've had my own blood and urine analysis done, all I've done is change my diet, included, if we look at the omega-3s in the example, fish. And I retest, and the omega-3 levels are where they need to be. So real food is, I don't think we realize or understand sometimes how important it is. We can look at the fats in our body, and every cell's made of a fat. We test the cell, we see what the fats are, whether they're trans fats or healthy fats like omega-3s, and just by changing the diet every 4 months, which is pretty much a cell life, we can see the change. Moving on to other things we do, we've got saliva tests. And the saliva test is really just a predictive test we use to, if you like, predict whether the driver's going to get sick. So in Formula One, recovery is really important with the traveling we do. And if we can predict illness, I know that I need to taper down the training and increase the work on the immune system. So I can tailor what I'm doing to help Kimi not get sick. I think when we look at nutrition for business travelers, I think what has worked for us is finding what works well. So, for example, Kimi's breakfast, we always stick to the same thing. Porridge oats provide a longer lasting supply of energy. They also contain something called beta-glucans, which are very good for the immune system. So there's a double, if you like, positive effect. We mix that with chia seeds, which contain a very good protein, good fiber, lots of other vital nutrients, and mix that with whether it be oat milk, but we can tailor it. Add cinnamon, which will help blood sugar level control. We could increase the protein level with a protein shake. I know that works for him because we've played around with all of this, but we use that for breakfast at every race we go to. I think from a business traveler point of view, the buffets are immense in the morning. You've got all these different options. Everything looks really good. I think buffets in general cause us to overeat to a certain degree, but it's knowing what works for you that will help keep you in better health. If you know certain foods make you feel good, then stick to those foods. I think it's equally important to know what doesn't work. So, for example, if we look at Kimi, if I gave him a bowl of pasta, I know 45 minutes later he's going to be asleep. So it's not something I really want to be giving him before qualifying or before the race. It completely goes against what we're trying to achieve. Next on the list is hydration. And I think hydration is something that it's a really important part of everyone's life, and I don't think it's something that many people do well. We pay particular attention to hydration in Formula One because we know the negative effects of dehydration. Decreased reaction time, decreased focus, decreased concentration. Not something you want to happen when you're driving at 300 kilometers an hour. But from a normal point of view, hydration, if you're a business traveler, you're just coming from a flight, you've got to go into some sort of meeting, what you don't want is the same symptoms: brain fog, lack of concentration, lack of focus. You're not going to deliver your best in that situation. To give you a bit of an idea with the hydration side, I used to work with Räikkönen, and his manager was Keke Rosberg, a former Formula One driver. And Keke loves his red wine, he loves his cigars. He came up to me saying, "Look, Mark, I drink red wine, I have my cigar, I get a massive headache. Can you come and have a look at my neck just to see if there's anything in my neck that's causing a problem?" So I went, worked on his neck, and a week later I said, "Hey, Keke, how was your neck?" And he said, in his normal blunt way, "What you did didn't make any difference. Still just as bad when I have my red wine and my cigars." So I said to him, "How much water do you drink on a daily basis?" He was like, "Water? None." So I got him drinking 2 litres of water a day, half a litre in the morning between 8 o'clock and 11, etc., etc. 3 weeks later, he came to me saying I was a genius because he can drink more red wine, he can have more cigars, and doesn't get the headaches. So I have no idea really whether I improved his health or not, because at the end of the day, all I allowed him to do was drink more red wine and have more cigars. But he was happy at the end of it. Therapy in Formula One. I'm a therapist, and I think what's interesting is everything I learned as a therapist a long time ago has manifested itself now into the training side of things. Functional movement patterns, functional training, getting the whole body involved in training. We don't look at isolated exercises anymore. My job is to keep Kimi in shape, so I think primarily my responsibility is to keep Kimi in one piece. I can make him as fit as I wanted, but if his body's falling apart, he's not going to, again, be much use in a Formula One car. And we've got several different issues that we have in Formula One: compression-related stress in the spine, we have asymmetrical load in the pelvis because the driver's pushing very hard on the braking leg, not pushing so hard on the accelerator. When it comes to business travelers, when it comes to the rest of the team, I can't work on everyone, so I've had to create programs for people in Formula One that really help them help themselves. And it's amazing what you can achieve with something as small as a massage ball or a foam roller. So when I was at Lotus, I got the team to buy everyone a massage ball, and then I just went in and did 2 workshops with them, just showing people how to use them. And the problems that people were suffering in Formula One just not disappeared, but were massively reduced. And again, it doesn't take up much space. We got the team to supply foam rollers to the track. Again, I would show people how to use them, and people could help them help themselves. And it's exactly the same for business travelers. The massage ball is something I always keep with me when I'm on the plane. You can use it under the feet, you can use it with the calves. There's a lot of problems that you can help yourself with, just with something as simple as a massage ball and a foam roller. The other interesting topic is what's causing the problem, and are you just treating the symptoms? I was working in McLaren, and we had a cigarette sponsor. And one of the top guys from the cigarette company always used to come to me at the races and say, look, I've got really stiff lower back. I've got a problem with my neck. Can you have a look at me? So I would go and work on him and loosen off his lower back, get rid of the neck pain, and he felt great. Come to the next race, exactly the same thing. And he'd say to me, look, Mark, I don't know whether it's the way I'm sleeping on the plane, I don't know if it's the planes I'm flying on, I always get the same problems. And I followed him out of the airport once, and I noticed that he was carrying a bag in one hand, quite a heavy bag. And I followed him, looked at the way he was moving, and I got to the track and I said, okay, to get rid of your problem, we just need to get rid of the bag. You need to get something on wheels. He got rid of the bag, got the wheels, his problems disappeared. So when I was working on his back and neck, I was treating a symptom. I was getting rid of the problem, but the cause was the bag he was carrying. So again, as business travelers, you need to just think about things in a way where, are you carrying something on one hand? Much better to put it over two shoulders or get something on wheels. Got the 4-minute signal here. Okay, smart travel in Formula One and travel in general. I think Formula One drivers, we're lucky in terms of working in Formula One because we do get to fly privately in Europe. Flying privately just allows convenience, but I've worked with several business groups and quite a few people, if you've got, say, I don't know, 10 executives going to a particular business meeting, sometimes if you look at the cost of the business class flights for each 10 people, it's actually cheaper to hire a private plane. The private plane gets rid of a lot of these sort of stresses associated with travel, going to the airport 2 hours early, going through the check-in process, the security. With the private planes, you tend to be able to land at a closer airport. So that's something that you could consider from a company point of view. Does it make sense? I think when it comes to travel in general in Formula One, how do we arrive in the best shape possible? I'm responsible for the whole program, and I think when I first came into Formula One in '97, I was fascinated with jet lag and how to get over it. And we used to have the head of the FIA medical delegate, Professor Sid Watkins, who was famous for keeping a bottle of brandy and a cigar in the medical safety car in Formula One. And I went up to him and said, Sid, how do I get rid of jet lag? I'm fascinated by this. And he just looked at me and said, son, when you get on the plane, turn left. And I didn't manage to turn left on a plane until about 7 years in Formula One, and it does for sure make a difference. But we're lucky now to have companies like Airbus and Boeing provide us with an A350 and a Dreamliner, because they kind of solve two of the big problems associated with jet lag. So when I book a flight, the first thing I try and do is book onto one of these newer aircraft. And the two issues they kind of address are humidity levels and the cabin altitude. Humidity levels, low humidity on a plane, it's around 5 to 20% depending on the age and make of the aircraft. Low humidity, number one, just dries us out, so it's why the in-flight magazine says keep drinking water. Every time we breathe, we're losing moisture on a plane, so we dehydrate very quickly. The other issue is because it dries us out, all the mucous membranes in the nose and throat dry up, and that's the part of the body that's supposed to catch all the bugs and bacteria that we're exposed to on a plane. So the bugs and bacteria just float through. It's like having a goal with no net. You kick the ball, it doesn't get caught, it just goes straight through. So the newer planes increase the humidity levels. It's not huge, but it's a step in the right direction. The other thing they address is cabin altitude. A 747, a 777 will have a cabin altitude of around 8,000 feet. And all the research that Boeing and Airbus have done indicate that anything over 6,000 feet for the human body, you're going to start getting symptoms that are more synonymous with altitude sickness. And we assume that these are jet lag. So again, by trying to address these two issues, we're taking a step in the right direction to avoid what we commonly view as jet lag. I think if we look at jet lag specifically, one of the things, or one of the best things in 22 years that I've found to address jet lag, or pretty much eliminate it on anything up to maybe 12, 13 hours, is fasting on flights. So by this I mean just not eating on the plane. And the idea is to look at breakfast at your destination as the first time you're going to eat from your travel. And there's been several different diets based on this, 16 hours from breakfast, etc., etc. But what I've found is if you try and make the plan too complicated, people just don't adopt it, and it has to be easy to adopt. Not eating on the plane is quite simple in terms of the theory. It might be a little bit more difficult in practice. But the reason this is sort of theory to work is our normal wake-sleep cycle of 24 hours can be overridden by another body clock based on food, which is more of a survival instinct. And for me, like I say, having tried and tested all of these methods, it's something that I've given to lots of people in Formula One, and all of them have reported feeling less jet lag, less fatigue, or a quicker recovery from the flights. So, so again, it's something that I put into our program to arrive in better shape. And like I say, it's just something that's easy for any business traveller to try. My time's run out. That's 24 seconds over. So I think when it comes to disruption, which is what people have been talking about today, I think when I look at what's happening in the hotel world, I look at gym facilities because I'm also responsible for booking the hotels that we stay in. I look for certain facilities. I look for quality food to be able to order. I look for blackout blinds because it helps with sleep, but I also look at the gym facilities. And I think it's one of the areas that hotels call Technogym or they call Life Fitness. They come and supply a whole host of machines that take up a lot of space that really just work on isolated muscle groups. And we don't do that anymore when we train. We work on functional patterns to get the whole body involved. So I think there is a huge opportunity for hotels to try and get the gym side of things right, or to move it into the hotel room, because a lot of people don't have time, or they don't perceive they have time to go down into the gym. So I think it's one thing that the hotel guys here could really think about and do better. For more information, you could check out my website, markarnall.com. I've really tried to set this up to help business travelers and just show business travelers what we do in Formula One and how you can help yourselves. I'm also going to be doing a training session tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock, which will show you some of this training stuff and then allow you to experience it. You might not enjoy the experience. There's 20 people that can sign up for that, so I don't quite know where you sign up, but you can speak at the registration desk. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for listening. It's been great to be here at AHIC. I wish you all a good day, and I'll be hosting a roundtable, I think, at 6:30 when you can ask me questions about any of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. That was fascinating and a great change from cybersecurity. I do wonder, however, if you go through customs and you show this, what do they ask you that you're using this for?
I'll put that in the checked-in bag.
Yeah, but I imagine the way you look, if you say fitness, it kind of makes sense, because clearly, Mark, whatever you're doing, it's working.